What's up, manager? How are you?
Howdy. Um, Thank you
How are you,
for
sir?
letting me come on first. I was not expecting that. Um,
Absolutely. Good to see you.
yeah, it's good seeing you guys. Um, what I wanted to do, with your permission, Joel, is I wanted to kind of get a common understanding of some concepts that and how you define some things. I'd like to ask you a series of questions and then offer some kind of critical insight, if I could, if you don't mind. I
Sure.
would. Okay.
Yeah, real quick, let me
Um,
start a timer for us. Um, we'll do 20 minutes is what we're doing
All right,
tonight.
thank
So,
you. I
yep,
appreciate that.
yep.
Um, in your understanding, what is logic?
Sorry, one second. 1930. Okay. Um, Logic is the set of rules that govern coherent thought and truth. It's uh it's a set of three laws with the proposition with the attributes that I've enumerated several times in our conversations. They are not made of matter. They are transcendental. They are absolute. They are invariant, um, uniform, knowable, three in one, equally ultimate to one another, objective. Um,
Okay.
those three laws govern all possibility and all coherency.
Okay. What is a logical statement or a logical proposition?
One that accords with the laws of logic.
Okay. Um, what is an
Are you going
inference?
to tell me if you agree with these? By the way.
Oh, I disagree with both of what you've said so far, but like I say, let me finish this and we'll get to that.
Now, if you like this episode and you want to take your learning further, you need to know about what we're doing to help revolutionize the way that Christian men interact with their faith. We want to help you get more equipped to lead your family, to answer any objection, to share and defend your faith. And I'll tell you more about what we're doing to help you do exactly that after the episode. Stay tuned. All right, go
Um,
ahead.
what is an inference?
An inference is a let's see. It would. How does the dictionary define it? I don't have a stipulative definition of it.
Okay.
Define inference. Um, the act or process of deriving logical conclusions from premises known or assumed to be true. Okay, so following the logic to the logically necessary conclusion.
Okay. What is validity?
Come on, man. Validity
I'm,
is
I contend that.
validity. Okay, validity
Go ahead.
is when the it's an attribute of an argument wherein the or whereby the conclusion follows from the premises.
Okay. What is logical consistency?
Logical consistency is where there's no internal contradictions. Get to the
Okay.
point, man. Get to an argument. We don't need to define all these terms.
Um, I I want to be clear about what your terms are,
Well,
and
now,
what
okay.
I
So then
offer.
you define those terms.
Okay, let me. Um, First of all, I contend that logic is an extracted model from our existence. It is a part of being a human being just as much as being reproductive or uh, processing food in our bodies. I contend it's simply a matter of a human attribute. Um, and that to be human is to extract models from the world around us, whether they be logical, scientific, or theological.
Okay.
So,
What else did you say? What is validity? What were the other questions you asked me? I want to make sure we get them all.
um, a logical proposition.
Consistency. Yeah. Logical proposition.
Okay, a logical
Yeah.
proposition is a statement or a proposition that carries logical content. And now, be fair warning here, there is an entire field of philosophic debate about what logical content is.
Yeah, but
And
you've got to define it for yourself, though, right?
well, what I'm saying is it's a highly debated topic. And what I'm saying is that a logical proposition, if A, then B, it carries some sort of logical content to it. That's why it's a logical proposition.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be in accordance with the laws of logic. Just it needs to be structured in a particular way. If then it's a conditional.
As we've discussed it before, the laws of logic vary from system to system, and an inference is going to vary from system to system.
Could
And
there be a logical system in which there are no conditionals?
sure, there's many of them that only
Okay.
use ampersands and knots. There's
Okay,
plenty of them.
so then how are you going to define it seems like a logical statement or a logical proposition could be anything then.
Um, Depends on the logical system. It's going to vary from logical system to logical systems.
Okay. So
In modal,
there is no one definition of what it means to be logical. What it means to have a logical proposition because it could vary infinitely. But hypothetically, potentially, it could vary infinitely. Is that correct?
as I've given examples before, a logical proposition in Aristotelian logic is going to be an and statement. Excuse me, an all statement, a some statement, a none statement, or not all, not some, and not some, not none.
Okay.
In first order propositional logic, it's going to be and or, if then, or if and only if then.
Okay.
In
So
modal logic, it's going to have possibility, contingency. So they're
okay.
going to vary from logical system to logical system.
Okay. So a logical proposition is any for you is any proposition in which there is content that accords with some designated logical system,
That's
which
correct.
could
Logical content is going to vary from system to system
okay,
because
so it could be
Aristotle.
potentially that respectfully, that to me does seem like a definition that is it doesn't really define because a definition needs to be able to delineate something from everything else and explain what makes it unique. And it seems like if a proposition could be logical and could vary infinitely, vary, vary infinitely,
Mhm.
it seems like you're defining it so broadly that you've actually lost any kind of meaningful definition. But
But it
that's
does
okay.
have meaning within each logical system
But
because the
then even
logical system
logic,
defined.
so then what would be an attribute that all logical systems have in common that make them logical systems and not moral
That's why we
systems
have
or
this broad definition of logical content. That's why it's hotly debated because it varies from system to system.
okay, so
The
then so logic is an extracted model
Mhm,
from our existence. It's a human attribute.
that's correct.
What kind of model what makes it a logical system as opposed to a moral system or a mathematical system?
Because it's defined in very precise ways as to what kind of statements are going to be utilized, what sort of inferences are going to be used, the what definition of validity is going to be used. It's going to be defined by what sort of operators are going to be in there, whether it's if-then operators, or operators, not operators, and that's what it's defined by what is called a metalogical structure.
What
These things define what those things are, and
okay,
again, they vary from system to system.
all right, I don't wanna filibuster here, or I know you're trying to get somewhere with this, but what I'm still not clear on, in your view, what makes a system a logical system as opposed to some other kind of system, like a moral system or a physical system? I mean,
Well,
a moral or epistemological, what's the mathematical is the word I'm looking for.
well,
What is the one attribute that logic has that no other system has?
the reason I ask you about consistency and completeness and about decidability is these are characteristics of logical systems. A logical system that is complete means that all of the statement types that are within it are able to be utilized within that system. A logical system that is consistent is one that does not yield A and not A or a contradiction as true. A logical system that is decidable means that all of the statement types can be decided as being either true or false within that
I
system.
so I hear you, but you're already one step past the definition that I'm looking for, which is what makes a system a logic system as opposed to something else? What is the sine qua non of a logic of all logical systems that separate them from different systems? So you can't say, well, it's a logical system that is consistent. A logical system that is consistent has these attributes. I That's fine. My question is, what makes it a logical system in the first place, as opposed to some other kind of system?
That's exactly what I'm telling you, that it adheres to logical consistency. It
But you
adheres to.
can't define a term by itself. So
Sure, you
what is
can.
it?
That's what we're doing because we're doing a different level of logical inquiry.
So a
When
logical
you're
system is a logical system?
No, a logical system is consistent. A logical system is complete. A logical system is decidable. These are the attributes of logical
I
systems.
see, I see. So you're saying all logical systems are consistent, complete, and decidable.
Correct. If it's
Okay.
going to be a legitimate logical system.
Okay, and
If
who
you have a logical system that yields a true contradiction, then you do not have um, you have an inconsistent logical system because it does not
well,
meet the definition of consistency.
okay. So that is interesting because now you're going right. I don't want to go down this route just yet, but you are coming back to the second law of logic that I always tell you about, which is the law of non-contradiction, and you're using that as a standard by which to judge all the other logical systems,
That is
which is
not the
what I've
case
been
at all.
contending. That's what
That is not the case at all,
you just said.
because
It's you said it's not
listen
legitimate
to me,
if it
listen to me,
entails a logical contradiction. You just
listen to
said that.
me. A logical contradiction is a statement or a pair of statements.
Mhm.
A logical system is consistent or inconsistent. So it is not judged on the basis of the truth or falsity. It's based on what it yields as a
Right.
contradiction.
And
You're
what did you
talking
just
about two different levels of logical inquiry here.
so I
When we talk about inferences, inferences are not true or false. Inferences are either valid or invalid.
okay,
We use
so
different terminology.
you jumped over to inferences there, but go back to what you just said about systems yielding contradictory or non-contradictory um conclusions or results. And unless I'm hearing things, and I'm not, you said that a logical system is not legitimate if it yields a true contradiction.
I said it is inconsistent if it yields a true contradiction.
But you also
We
used the word illegitimate.
Yes, okay, that was an incorrect term for me. I
Okay.
should have said it was inconsistent
Okay.
rather than illegitimate.
All right. So, but it's not, it's having an inconsistent logical system on your view, then, since you're walking that back, that doesn't make the system illegitimate on your view.
I'm saying that it is I will stay with the definition that I used, that it is inconsistent. And and you have good reason to throw out the system because it yields a true contradiction.
Well, if you're throwing it out, why would you throw away something that's legitimate? It sounds like you're
Well,
saying that it's illegitimate.
I choose not to use the word legitimate or illegitimate. I simply use to stay with the term that is a logical term of inconsistency or consistency.
And you're not ascribing any value or lack of value to that system that yields a contradiction. You're just saying it's inconsistent and I'm discarding it, but I'm not saying it's illegitimate. Is that do I understand?
I'm not going to use the term illegitimate.
Okay. But so you're
I'm not going
discarding
to.
it because it's inconsistent, but you're not going to say illegitimate. Okay.
That's
That
correct.
that seems
Okay.
like you're just
Because I'm
unwilling to
trying
use
to
the
be
term.
precise in these
Okay.
things. Again, logical statements are true or false. Truth functionally is true or false. By the way, that's the other thing. Logic does not deal in truth per se. It deals in truth functions, how things function. And when
Well,
you have a logical system that is inconsistent, then you have one that's not useful. Okay. Um,
again, that would make it illegitimate for truth seeking. So
if you wish to use that terminology, you can, but I'm
yeah,
not.
I do.
Okay. I've been a network engineer since 1993, and the same diagrams that define logical statements are the same diagrams that define digital circuitry.
Okay.
That is its usefulness. Okay. The difference is that in logical statements, we use T's, F's, and tildes. In digital circuits, we use one, zeros, and dashes, but their function is exactly the same.
Okay. But I do want to harp on the point that your standard for judging a system as discardable or you don't want to say legitimate, but um, retainable is the law of non-contradiction.
No,
Whether or not it produces um, a true contradiction, and that's what you said. So that's been my
yes.
contention all along, manager, is that all of these different logical systems are ultimately judged by the law of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle.
That is not
Those
what you've said. That is not what you
that
say. You say that those laws are transcendent. You say that those laws are
yes,
absolute.
they
You
are.
say that those law no, they're not.
Well,
No, they're not.
what makes you think that what I just said isn't affirming all that? That's exactly what I'm affirming. They're transcendent, which means they apply to any thought experiment or any attempt at using a parallel or paraconsistent system of logic such that we can judge the validity or invalidity or the legitimacy or illegitimacy or consistency or inconsistency of those systems and their results by the three laws of logic. That's always
No,
been my contention.
Joel, when you have a modal system, a contradiction that it yields is going to be different than first order propositional logic. So you're going to have a different way of deciding what a true contradiction is than you would in first order propositional logic, and as you would in Aristotelian logic. So inconsistency is gauged differently depending on the operators used within the system.
Okay, so can
So
you
it
give me
is
an
not
example of that?
the law of non-contradiction that you're referring to.
So
It
can you
is
give
a
me an
different
example?
law of non-contradiction that is
Can,
going to judge each of these logical systems consistent or not.
can you give me an example?
Sure, in modal logic, uh, they take one statement, A is possibly true. Its contradiction would be it is impossible for A to be true.
Or A is not possibly true.
No, it is impossible for A to be true.
Well, a direct negation of that, if say the first
The
proposition
first one
again.
is
A
A is
is
possibly true.
right. The direct negation of that is A is not possibly true.
No,
Or you can
not
put
in
the
modal
not.
logic. In modal logic, the negation of that is it is impossible for A to be true.
Explain to me the material difference between those two statements. A is not possibly true versus it is impossible that A is true.
It's a different designation in modal logic.
What?
They are not equivalent expressions
How are they materially different?
because you can string together A is possibly true, A is possibly true, A is possibly true, and
Okay.
they each have a different truth value between true and false.
Okay.
So when you're saying that it is not the case that it is possibly true, it's different than saying that it is impossible for it to be true. It's a different designation in modal logic.
Okay. Okay. So hold on. I'm close to understanding what you're saying, and I do want to understand it. Um, that you're saying that in modal logic, the negation of A is possibly true is it is impossible. That to me seems like you're not negating the same that a negation, as I understand it, is notated by saying, so look, here, I've got A, okay, there's my
Mhm.
proposition A. A is
Right.
possible. And in this case, proposition A is possibly true. That's the proposition. To negate it, I'm negating it. And that negation, the um the negation can go, I want to say it can go anywhere in the proposition. It is
No,
not
that's not
possibly
not in
true.
modal logic. It cannot.
Okay, so then what are the attributes of modal logic and how is modal logic not still dependent on, because it seems to me like it is impossible that A is true is another form. It doesn't seem like it's materially different. Explain how it's materially different from it is A is not possibly true. Or not, I guess we would have to say not
It is not the case
A
that
is possibly true.
A is possibly true
Right.
because one is a negation that that can yield many different meanings within that. To say that it's not the case
Which
that
one
A
is?
is possibly true, you can also say A is not possibly, or that it is possibly true, or it is possibly true.
Okay.
All the other possibilities are included in that. But to say that it is impossible for A to be true is the direct negation of that because those two things cannot be true at the same time
I
in
see what
modal
you're
logic.
saying. I see what you're saying. Okay, so if I say it is impossible for A to be true, then it is not possibly possible that A is true or any
That's
other.
correct.
Yeah, right. You can multiply the
Any of
possibles.
those in that infinite series.
Sure, sure, sure. Okay. Okay. So then let me revise my previous statement because I realized as I was writing this that actually the way I was saying it was actually incorrect. I don't think you can. I'm going to walk back what I said. I don't think you can put the negative or the negation anywhere. I think that if A is a self contained proposition, the negation would need to come prior to it, outside of it, if you will. So then it would be, it is not, or not A is possibly true, which that would be equivalent to, I think that would be equivalent to it is impossible that A is true.
No, it's not.
Why?
Because if you're saying, okay, let's take the statement, A is possibly true, and you're going
Uh-huh.
to negate that. That means it is something other than A is possibly true. And
Okay.
that
Hold
other
on.
than includes everything else A is false, A
right?
is not false, A
Yeah,
is
right,
possibly
right,
false,
right,
A is possibly true, A is contingently
right.
true, A
Yeah,
is
that makes
conditionally
sense.
true.
That
Okay,
makes sense. Yes, I understand what you're saying.
but
Yes,
when you're saying it's impossible for it to be true, you're taking a direct attack upon possibly A,
right,
and you're taking the direct thing, and, and these things are diametrically opposed. Whereas you're saying something other than possibly,
right.
and when you're saying it is not the case.
Yes, no, I understand. I that makes sense. You're eliminating all potential hypotheticals within that. Like, okay, it's not
That's
that
correct.
it's not possibly true, but we can say it's we can add a degree and we can say it's possibly possible. Yeah, sure. Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense. Sure,
or it's
but
contingently true, or it's necessarily true, or it's
right.
all the other operators that are associated with modal logic.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. Um, that actually makes sense, and yet two none of oh that's 20 that's 20 minutes. Um, and yet it is still not the case that two actually contradictory propositions can both be true in the same sense and at the same time.
My point is that it varies from logical system to logical system. A and not A is a contradiction in first order propositional logic. It is not in A and not A does not even apply in Aristotelian logic. It does not even apply in modal logic. And the
Okay,
definitions of contradiction varies from system to system.
I hear what you're saying, and believe me, actually, I actually understand what you're saying. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I understand. Once you started multiplying the possibilities, that made sense to
Mhm,
me. And yet, and yet, um, I've said this for a long time, but when it comes to, I think they're called paraconsistent systems of logic, meaning
mhm.
the non-traditional, non-classical
Right.
modes of logic, or
Multi-valence logics.
right, multi-valence logics. Um, it just requires being more specific. So if you want to say, well, in this form of logic, we're going to notate it differently, where the negation can it must be outside of the full proposition, or we're going to say instead of saying just simply not, we're going to say impossible or something like that. Um, it would still not be the case, even in that system, that if your thought experiment yielded a contradiction according to the classical laws of logic, that result would be possible or valid or true or logically consistent or logically legitimate. Is that not correct? I mean, if whatever system you're using, whatever system of notation, whatever system
Mhm.
of terminology, it would seem self-evident that if that is yielding an actual contradiction according to the law of non-contradiction in classical logic, that would still be an illegitimate result. And you might
What
not
I'm
want to say
saying is
illegitimate, but you would have to discard it.
what I'm saying is that your notion of the law of non-contradiction is stuck within one logical system, and that logical system that it is stuck within is stuck there because of the statement types that you use, and the
Okay,
statement types that are used within a logical system varies from system to system.
yes, I actually understand your position more than I have in the past now, but I still don't think that you're understanding mine, which is that even within these other systems, the three classical laws of logic are still determining as the ultimate transcendent standard whether or not the the result of that system yields a valid or legitimate result.
Do you understand that Aristotelian logic is restricted to 6 statement types?
Yes, I get
Okay,
that.
let me
I
finish,
understand.
please.
Okay. All
Do
right.
you understand that first order propositional logic uses a different set of statement types within its logical system than Aristotelian logic?
Yes, I understand that, but the results of that system, if they do yield A and not A according to classical logic, you can say, well, we're using different notation, we're using different terminology, and there are different rules at play here. But if we're talking about a coherent idea, which is what classical logic judges, if we're saying we are trying to arrive at something that is potentially true, if
No,
your
that's not
par
what logic deals in. Logic deals in truth functions.
well, right, but logic also has entailments on the real world. No one's
No,
saying that.
It is a model extracted from it.
Well,
Like
that's
it,
right, but again, this is where we get back to our definitions because the my contention has always been that the transcendent laws of logic are not somehow divorced. They're not restricted to the law of like some kind of plate or the world of platonic forms or something. They actually, because they're grounded in God, and God is the creator of all things, and in God, unity and diversity, and the transcendent and the act and the uh, material categories and instantiations of those categories are both grounded in God. Therefore, the laws of logic do have implications on the real world. So if you're using a paraconsistent form of logic and it's yielding a classical contradiction, the result of that cannot be something that is actual in the real world. That's my contention.
it
You agree
doesn't
with that?
have to be something actual in the real world. It does not have to be actualized. If I say
It's the
if I
but it's
say
not
if 2 plus
possibly
hang on.
okay. Okay.
If I say if 2 plus 2 equals 5, then the capital of Alabama is Montgomery,
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
okay? And then I say 2 plus 2 equals 5, therefore, the capital of Alabama is Montgomery.
No.
That is a perfectly valid argumentation, and
Yes.
whether it adheres to anything in the real world or not,
I
doesn't matter.
what you're saying is correct, and I agree with that, and that wasn't my contention. And I didn't say actual, I said potentially true or potentially actual. The
How
laws
is
of
that
logic,
potentially true? If 2
I
plus 2 equals 5, then the capital of Alabama is,
it's not.
Montgomery.
It's
That's right, but
that's
it's
right.
still logically valid, and it still has logical
Yes.
application, and still
Yes.
has logical content,
Hear
and
me when
still
I
has logical meaning.
hear me when I say a an argument, a logical argument can be valid without being sound, but it
Correct.
can't be sound without being valid, and it can't be true without being sound. A proposition can't be true and in the actual world without being sound, without being the result of a sound argument. Like a sound argument is a prerequisite for a true proposition, and validity precedes soundness. And all of this is dependent on the three classical laws of logic. That's
Okay,
always been my contention.
alright,
So
let me
eh,
ask you this. If I
we're
say
actually we're actually out of time. We do
alright,
have other guys in
one
the
last thing.
waiting.
If I
Okay, hurry
say
up.
2 plus 2 equals 5, if 2 plus 2 equals 5, then, Montgomery is the capital of Alabama. Is that a true or false statement,
It it's
logically?
it is it's neither one. It's neither a true or
No,
false
that's not the
statement.
case. It is logically true, because whenever the,
It's
antecedent
not
of a
actually
conditional statement the conditional statement is false, the conditional statement is true.
okay.
That's the standard definition of a conditional statement.
Okay. It has no truth value in the actual world though,
Of
because
course it does. That's what it deals in is truth values.
if 2 plus 2 is hold on, let me think about this. If 2 plus 2 is 5, then uh yes, I guess that would be true. Yes, you're right. I take
Yes,
that
it
back.
is
Yes,
truth
it would be
functionally
true.
true.
Yes, that's
All
fine.
right. Thank you for letting me pursue this. I appreciate it greatly.
Okay. Yep. Great talking with you.
Thanks, manager. Have a good one, bro.
Okay. Overheated again.
Overheat fallacy.
Yeah, I commit that every
Camera.
week. Okay. Did what
All right.
manager was saying make sense to you? Was there something I was missing?
I was upstairs for 90% of that because I had to help my wife with something.
What he said was, well, I won't rehash it. Um, it's interesting because I actually find a lot to agree with him on, in the sense that if you are using a different form of logic, it's going to play according to its own rules. My contention has always been that the three classical laws of logic undergird the let's
Every
just say
other
that
form of logic.
yeah, they serve as as the transcendent standard by which we judge the results of other forms of logic. If we're just using a paraconsistent form of logic, meaning like a non-classical form of logic, so he was talking about modal logic, for example, then if we're using it as just merely like a thought experiment or something, okay, it's interesting. It's like that computer program that you told me about before, which it can yield true and false results so that the medicine doesn't get
Yeah, it can yield contradictory results
right.
just to make sure the software doesn't completely crash.
Right. And internal to that system, that's fine. But my contention has always been that the laws of logic undergird what is potentially actual. They're transcendent in terms of um Like a true contradiction, no matter what system yields it, can't actually be true in the
Yeah,
objective absolute sense.
it deals with the system level.
Yes, it
So
deals
at
with
the
the system.
system, yeah,
Yes,
at the very top, it cannot escape the three classical laws of logic.
yes,
And there's literally nothing you can do about it. You
that's
can
right.
talk about within the system all you want, but
Right. And even to have that discourse about the system, we're presupposing the three classical laws of logic. I didn't go there today because we've talked about
yeah.
it before, but I've had atheists on who have said, well, logic is just a convention. I say, well, then it's not, because I don't hold to that convention for the sake of argument. You're a Christian man. You want to build a legacy, answer the world's questions, and lay down a solid foundation for your family in God's word. But everywhere you look, you see decline, disorder, chaos. Your neighbors don't know the Lord, and too many churches are filled with apathy. In today's world, we need men who understand theology, know scripture, and who are committed to leading their families in the biblical worldview. That is why we're building the Hammer and Anvil Society, the ultimate discipleship community for Christian men. With weekly cohort calls, a full library of resources and courses, weekly challenges, and live teaching, you're going to sharpen your mind and your character. Our full library of courses is going to help you deepen your knowledge in the Christian worldview, family discipleship, and apologetics, the defense of your faith. But it's not just about building your knowledge base, as important as that is. It's also about brotherhood. That's why you'll also have access to an online community and live cohort calls, live teaching, and real accountability. So you can have fellowship with like-minded brothers who are on the same journey as you. Member Kevin says, the Hammer and Anvil Society has been the most beneficial thing for my family's spiritual growth in years. This unique brotherhood has made me more bold in my witness and more sensitive to God's leading. AJ says, today I stand stronger and more rooted in my faith. The Hammer and Anvil Society has been instrumental in transforming me into the man of God I am striving to be. Get unlimited access as a member or try out a single course in the subject of your choice. Learn more now. Go to thethink.institute/society. Get equipped. Build your legacy in community. Join today.